EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday morning edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen. Another day in the offseason, John, and today we're filled with news, brother, for the Philadelphia Eagles, from Nick Sirianni to Joe Douglas to the Tush push. We'll talk about it all today. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, John?
Yeah, big day in the offseason. You get the extension, which we all knew what was coming, just didn't know when it was coming. And that is here with Nick Sirianni. Joe Douglas back after an unsuccessful stint as a GM, if you're going to be real about it, with the New York Jets. But it's not easy to be a GM with the New York Jets. Great personnel guy. You know, one of the key hires to get the Eagles up to where they are really right now, if you think about Super Bowl 52 through this Super Bowl championship. You know, Joe was leading the personnel department, building that roster for Super Bowl 52. So just from a pure scouting standpoint, big deal to have him back. And then the Tush push, you know, the vote will come most likely on Wednesday. Unfortunately, I was hoping it was today so he could get it over with. And I say should be, because if they don't have the votes, they won't take a vote and they'll table it again. So we should have at least confirmation for this year. And as expected, they reworked the rule to make it a far broader version. I thought it was a mistake to word it the way that they worded it originally. Now it's been reworked to be a far broader thing. As I've explained, no pushing or pulling runner in any direction of any time. So not only one play, you're removing pushing from the entire game. That's the new thing they're going to be voting on, most likely. So a lot different, and this is what it should have been to begin with.
Feels big, though, John. You know, like, do you wonder if they should have made that at the line of scrimmage or something like that, or do you like the proposal to go pushing as a whole?
No,
I did see like this video,
this
dub video somebody put out of, like, you know, all these great NFL plays, and it's like, with the new rule, none of these plays would have been allowed. There's like Adrian Peterson in there. There's all sorts of great plays. Now, I'm not advocating for one way or the other. I'm just looking for your opinion on it.
I've said it consistently. Like, no offense to these people, but they have no fucking idea what went on before 2005. From 1920 to 2005, this was the rule. The current that they're losing their minds over has been in existence for 20 years, 19 years. Unfortunately for old people like me, and the game was much more aesthetically pleasing when there was no pushing involved. And it was fine. Nobody had an issue with it. So this, oh my God, it was that way far, far longer than it was what you think it is right now. And I'm not picking on you. I'm talking about the people that go down that route. They have no idea of the history of the game. Why they took it out in 2005, they claimed it was too difficult to officiate. They're scared of their own shadows. Coming off the Bush push in the college level, it was even more stupid. It's a stupid rule. It should have been removed years ago. It has nothing to do with the Philadelphia Eagles. The only reason it got mixed up with the Philadelphia Eagles is because of the wording of the rule that the Green Bay Packers put forth, which was about eliminating just essentially one play and not pushing from the game, which is what Roger Goodell wants removed from the game. Shouldn't be in the game. Don't like it from the defense's perspective. I said they do too much to hamper the defense in this league. So anything that's going to aid the defense, I'm going to generally support because they get screwed left and right. Yeah, I've said they should have never changed the rule in 2005. I've been on this for many, many years. And they should remove pushing from the game. Offensive pushing from the game. They should.
Yeah, we'll have a down
tomorrow. Eventually they will. I've said it pretty consistently. But for people that watch this show, it has gone exactly as I said it was going to go. Now,
yeah, I did chuckle when the amendment came out late last night. It was like 6 or 7 o'clock last night. We finally saw the amendment to the proposal from Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, it was never going to pass. As I also said, the way it was worded by Green Bay, because you are singling out one team. Now they're not. Now they're just trying to remove pushing from the game, which is what Roger Goodell wanted originally. Now, I don't know why he gets other teams involved. That I can't answer. Because that mucks up the works. Because you got all these fans, Green Bay soft, they don't know anything about what's going on. No offense. It's like, you go back, the job of the league is different than the job of the Philadelphia Eagles. You can go back to Bob Gibson with the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball when they lowered the pitching mound. They didn't do it because they hated Bob Gibson or the St. Louis Cardinals. They did it because the game was getting too boring, because he was too dominant and he was the best. There were other pitchers as well. So they had to lower the pitching mound to make it easier for the hitters, to make the game more aesthetically pleasing. That's the job of the league. Will Chamberlain. There's so many damn rules changed because of Will Chamberlain's dominance. They didn't hate Will Chamberlain. They didn't hate the Philadelphia Warriors at the time. They had to widen the lane. They had to offensive goaltending didn't exist before Will Chamberlain. This people don't even believe this. He was not a good free throw shooter, but he was a great athlete. So what he would do is run up from the free throw line and sort of just lay it in, jump and lay it in, because he was so big and so athletic. It really did.
It's a good point though of what you're doing, where things create change in the game.
Yeah, I mean, so the league's process is, look, they don't want to play in the game. No, they don't. They don't. Part of it has to do with Frankie Luvu and the NFC Championship game.
I think that's a big part of it. It's the TV, John, in my opinion, right? It's the TV, man. The TV's where they're making all their money. They got a lot of casual fans out there, not people who are watching Birds 365 all through the summer, and they want to make the best TV possible for them.
And, I'm with people when they put out these proposals and some of the guys sent out, some of the national guys, and they sent out the actual proposal. And you can see it, which, in years past, you could never see these things. So, they have the wording of the proposal. They have the effects of what they believe the proposal will do. And then they have a reason why they want to change the rule. And anytime I see player safety, I'm with you. I roll my eyes. I hate when they do that. It's bullshit. They don't care about player safety. I'm with you 100%. So that part of it, yeah. I mean, they're hypocritical. They use it when they want to. They use it, you can get hurt at any time in this game. Nobody cares in real life, unfortunately. And then pace of play is legitimate because, as we just said, with Frankie Luvu and guys, and people could get mad at Frankie Luvu. Look, he's trying to guess the snap count because, that's the only way you can stop it. So, I mean, he's trying to do what's best for his team. And if you're going to run it 15 times and he's going to jump offside, he's going to try to guess it again and again and again. So guess what? That affects the pace of the play. pace of play. But it's not about disliking the Philadelphia Eagles. It is not. I'm sorry. There's a bunch of other stuff going on about, seeding and stuff like that. That's not about the Minnesota Vikings. If you go back to the change of the overtime rules, it's not about the Buffalo Bills. And those are bad rule changes in my estimation. It's not that I agree with the league all the time. Far from it. Those are bad rule changes. And you've already seen the unintended consequences of the overtime rules. They've had to change them again because they shouldn't have touched them, but they're worried about people complaining.
Perhaps too worried about people complaining.
Oh, yeah. But then our guy, our stat guy, Jeff Kerr, a shout out to him because he put them up again. The Eagles are going to be fine. They had a 100% success rate on the quarterback sneak in 2017. They had a 91.9% conversion rate in 2021, which was Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter before they used it. From 22 to 24, 91.3%. They actually went down. Now, did they use it more? Yes. But, then there's that mentality. 0.27% of plays. People are out there. I saw one guy reply to poor Jeff. Well, they're going to use it. I guarantee they're going to use it 100 times less than they did last year. What are they going to use it? Negative 53 times? How much do you think they run this thing?
No, I mean it is a critical play though. So, at least it has been for this team. But I'm not saying you and Jeff are wrong. I think you guys are going to be right. They're going to be good with it. John, we'll come back to this. I do want to touch on it, but I do want to keep this opening segment. I do want to hit on Sirianni and Joe Douglas as well. We mentioned them in the open. Let's start with Nick Sirianni, John. The big new contract for Nick Sirianni. Your thoughts here on Birds 365, and we'll dive into some of the questions that I have about it. But just your initial thoughts on Nick Sirianni getting the deal, the expected deal that we thought would get done this year has officially landed.
Yeah, I mean, had a ton of leverage, man. Winning the Super Bowl, third highest winning percentage in the modern era. Only John Madden and George Allen are higher, and you got to go back to the 70s for that. In the modern era, is the winningest coach in NFL history. Is the only coach to make the postseason 4 consecutive times, make the Super Bowl twice, and win one. No other coach has done that in the modern era. Like, his resume is historic. So, what it ends up, and somebody will get the number eventually. I can't imagine it will be less than Sean Payton, who's number 2. Could they have talked him in a little bit under Andy Reid? Potentially, because of Andy's history. And he's been around so long. But I mean, this guy deserves everything he's getting. But it comes at a cost, and that cost is, and Jeffrey Lurie even said it and I wrote about this on Sports Illustrated, in his statement when they announced the extension, sustained success. That's it now. That's the goal. Yep. And that's what happened to Doug Peterson. Couldn't sustain the success. And
I also think Doug also had some other issues in terms of wanting more. Nick seems to, John, work well in the sandbox that they've created for him. Doesn't seem like he's asking for much more than they're willing to give him versus Doug, did want more things.
Well, things worked out. Remember, Nick wasn't happy last year. He wasn't happy. Did he go along? Yeah, of course.
And you said that at the time. You said he's more politically savvy, and you're right about that. Yeah,
he is more politically savvy, but and we don't know, but because it worked. But if you can imagine a world where they lost in the first round of the playoffs again, he might have gotten fired, considering the regular season they had. So if they
Right.
lose in the divisional round, or that, if they lose in the wild card round, it would have been on the table. I don't think he should have been fired, but it would have been on the table. And now, everything falls into place. You win the Super Bowl. And now there's that, Doug called it the new normal. That's the goal. Be New England, be Kansas City, the new normal. And those expectations are there. So now, if one of those years happens, like 2023, all of a sudden, then you have Howie and Jeffrey who think they're responsible for a lot of this. And they are. I'm not saying they're not. They're big parts of this, saying, well, do we really need to pay a coach $20 million when we can get similar results for 7, 8, 9 at that point?
This is where I think they got to find the gray area, though, John. Like, you don't want to get, let your ego get too big and then you make the wrong decision because you thought that,
Yeah, well, and I think they're completely wrong. But by the way, for those thinking, I'm just pointing out things,
I don't know if they're completely wrong. I mean, I think I do think Nick is the right coach for this team. But look, they could point to the last two coaches and say we've had the best 8-year run in Eagles history. 2 different coaches. The front office stayed the same. We built 2 different rosters, 2 different quarterbacks. Like, they've done a lot as an organization that would give them that thought process. I would just say don't go too far. And like you just said, just because you gave him a pay raise, now you want to blow him out, because you can get cheaper.
Oh, and I'm not saying, by the
way,
I'm saying, look, if he wins, there's no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
And by win, I don't mean win the Super Bowl every year, but win the division, go deep in the playoffs, consistent, sustained success. And there's no problems. And once you get to a point, if it reaches 10 years or something like that, all of a sudden you have a little bit more rope for a bad year. The problem is this game is cyclical, and bad things are going to happen. And it might be injuries, which kind of derailed Doug's last season here, with the offensive line. And all of a sudden, a good team turns into a average team or even a below average team. You saw it at the end of 2023. They look like a below average team, when they went 1-6 at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And look, you don't have to look back very far to see the kind of heat he was under, even last year when they were 2-2.
It was more than just fans, John. Like we said that yesterday. The owner had questions.
Oh, yeah.
Based on I mean,
Jeffrey wanted to go buy a yacht to, take the emotion out of it after that Tampa Bay loss.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the yachtsman when he went and bought a yacht.
And that was to keep himself, because he was angry. I tell the story about, I always tell the story about going down to Tampa, but in the press box, the Tampa Stadium's an older press box. So, a lot of the Eagles people sit right behind us. Like usually in some of the newer stadiums, they're in the suite or something, or, away from us. They're right behind us in Tampa because it's an older stadium. And watching that game unfold and the ugliness in the second half, and there was pretty high level Eagles exec. That's all I'll describe them as. Right behind me, just let out, this is fucking embarrassing. And that right then I said, oh boy.
Yeah.
So things can turn quickly in the NFL.
Do you think Jeffrey Lurie, perhaps, for as good as he is as an owner, and I do want to give him that credit before I ask this, but do you think he needs to be more even keeled on stuff like this?
Yes. By no means am I. Nick should not be fired. By no means.
No,
He
I mean,
shouldn't have
and,
been
you know,
fired.
it's funny, John, just real quick. We talk about last 23, and it's like, I know it was ugly, but we won 11 games. You know, like it's not like, and again, it was ugly. The way it looked mattered, but 11 games is an up year for half the league, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh, it shouldn't have even been considered to fire Nick Sirianni. He shouldn't have had to go yacht shopping to take the emotion out of it. But I mean, the emotion's involved because they do care. And that's part of it. And it's high profile. Look, one of the reasons I think they fell apart is because of overreaction to Sean Desai, who by no means am I saying it was pretty clear he wasn't ready for that job, but you know, you do it the right way. You get through it and then you make a move after the season.
Yeah, that was a weird move, man. 10-2, they made that move. It just didn't make sense to me, you know?
I they were considering it during the bye week when they were 10-1, whatever. I have to look back at the bye
Yeah, I
week,
forget what the bye week was.
which blew my mind when I found that out. And early in the season, people, because there's a lot of revisionist, there always is. There's a lot of revisionist history. Whether you have a good season, there's a lot of revisionist history upward. Forget that the ugly parts, as you see that this year. I mean, everybody acts like the shitty passing game didn't exist because they won. Same thing in a negative fashion. They had some pretty good defensive games early in that season. They really did, especially in the second half.
Yeah.
Considering some of the injuries they went through, revolving door at slot cornerback. But everybody forgets that. And making the move to Matt Patricia is probably the worst decision Nick ever made as a head coach here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could make the argument regardless of how bad you thought the side was. When you're sitting at 10-2, you just let it go. I mean, you know, don't make that move now.
Yeah. It made no sense. It was a very bad decision. It was a panic decision. And, you know, I'm sure he learned from it, and that's part of being a coach. But overall, I think it was, and I don't want to pick on Greg Rosenthal, but there's a dichotomy between Nick and Jalen when people talk about the goofy disrespect card, which again, I don't agree with, because, you know, one pundit is not a group of pundits, or, you know, everybody's got different opinions. But if he happened to come out worst time ever, didn't know the extension was coming, the top coaches in the NFL. And I think Nick was 15th. I'm like, come on, dude. I'm like, you know, Kevin O'Connell's 4th. I'm like, what the fuck has Kevin O'Connell done? He's a very good coach. Everybody wants to work with him. He's won 14 games. So he's done a lot. But comparatively speaking, I'm like, but he calls plays.
Man, the infatuation with that, John, is crazy. John, I want to take you through one what if scenario. All right, and they're not my favorite to do, but this what if we've talked about a lot. All right, and with the new deal with Nick Sirianni here, coming off of last year where he was on rocky water after the collapse, the season prior, excuse me. If the Eagles lost that Rams game, if Jalen Carter doesn't get home, okay, and you end the game with whatever that was passing yards, and you lose that game and you go home in the divisional round, are we talking about a Nick Sirianni extension right now? And if we are, is it the same size, or are we talking about a whole different thing where maybe Nick was on the outs? What do you think?
Well, I think it's far more complicated. I don't think he gets fired. I do think he gets an extension, probably smaller extension, certainly less money. Shorter term, probably. And we don't even know. My guess is he got 4 more years. But, you know, in the case if they lose that game, maybe he gets 2 years and certainly less money. But they weren't going to let they're not going to let a head coach go into a season as a lame duck. Too many issues. The players know it. That's what bad organizations do. If adversity always adversity always props up. You can imagine if you're a player, you say, well, this coach is not going to be here anyway. So too many issues. So I think he would have gotten an extension, shorter term, lesser money. And the difference between potential firing, I go back to that Tampa, embarrassing. Losing that game wouldn't have been embarrassing. It would have been close. Jalen Carter didn't get it. The Rams win in the last minute. Would have been very close, nip and tuck. Right. Snow, there's excuses.
I do think it would have brought that passing thing that we talked about being bottom.
Oh yeah, people wouldn't stop talking about the pass. Kellen Moore might have affected.
That's what I mean. Kellen Moore might not even have gotten a head coaching job. This thing might look.
He wouldn't have. They're not even in the conversation. He wouldn't have. And he might have gotten fired from here because there would have been scapegoats,
right?
At the lower level.
I think and again, Jeffrey Lurie deserves a lot of credit, but in my estimation, that's too far. Like if you're going to have to scapegoat somebody after every playoff loss because it wasn't as far as you, that's where I think you're going too far. Making the divisional round is a hard thing to do. John, you talk about this all the time. Fans want to win the Super Bowl every year. Every quarterback in the history of the game, take your pick, loses the last game more than they win. There's only 6 games remaining or 4 teams remaining after the divisional round. I think that's too far if you're going to fire a coach every time you might lose a divisional game. That doesn't sound like it's.
No, I'm with you. I've been talking about that for years, back to the Doug Peterson era. That's what they do, and I don't agree with it. And I've said it with Mike Groh. I said it with Press Taylor. I said it with everybody they scapegoat. There's certain guys that Sean was an example of a guy who probably wasn't ready for that job. There's exceptions, but you know it. And like Kellen Moore, would have gotten fired? I don't know. Potentially, maybe his reputation, maybe the fact that his experience, maybe they would have given him one more chance. But the history is the history. I mean, look, if Nick had his druthers, Kevin Patullo would have been the offensive coordinator last year. But he was forced to go outside the organization,
right,
to get fresh ideas, which ended up as the exact same because you build the offense around the people you have for the most part. A little bit different because people are different, but from a thematic standpoint, very similar. And it should be that way because good coaches will build around the people they have. And Shane was a good coach and Brian was a good coach, whether people believe it or not. And they built the offense around the people they had. So it looked very similar from a thematic standpoint, not talking about success, individual plays. And then you try to grow it. And that's what Kellen tried to do, but he scaled back to what they do well. And that's what he should have done because he's a good coach.
Right.
But, if I don't even know if Nick would have fired Brian Johnson. Maybe he would have because.
Oh, I've said that over and over again. I think the Brian Johnson firing was way overblown. I mean, they acted like he was like the worst coordinator in football when they blew him out.
They always do that.
Kind of top 10 offense.
It's amazing to me, but and I use Press Taylor is the best example of this. The best example of this, because now everybody in Philadelphia thinks Press Taylor is the biggest joke in the world. Press Taylor was here before Doug Peterson. He was the golden child of the organization.
Right.
I came in here and everybody's pushing press tail. Oh, this guy's going to be a great coach. This guy's going to be a great coach. This guy's going to be a great coach. And then Doug took a liking to him, probably because he heard the same things I heard. This guy's going to be a great coach. This guy's going to be a great coach. And, kept promoting him and giving him more responsibility to the point he was the de facto offensive coordinator at the end. And all of a sudden, he's an idiot. Can't have it both ways. But from the Eagles' standpoint, they can, because they got away with it. Because fans don't know they were propping him up behind the scenes.
Right.
So all of a sudden, he's this fast rising, oh, how intelligent, how this guy's going to be a star in the coaching profession, into scapegoat. It's an ugly profession, man.
Yes, it is. This Nick Sirianni thing is interesting as well. Congrats to him. I do think he's earned every dollar he's going to earn. I think he's earned everything he's getting here with the success he's had. But I do wonder, at what point does this thing, is it not look so pretty? I don't know. I think there's
going to be that. I hate to bring it, there's going to be hiccups. This league is cyclical. Talent.
Yeah, there is. I just don't know what, at what point does a hiccup happen where a change is coming? I don't know. We'll see. John, last question on Sirianni, just for now, until we'll talk to Caden Steele later in the show. And I want to get into Joe Douglas here in the opening segment. But I want you to put yourself in Jeffrey Lurie's shoes for this answer. See if you can envision yourself as Jeffrey Lurie. What's Nick Sirianni worth to you, John?
What, money-wise?
Yeah. The whole deal. I mean, Andy Reid makes 20. Sean Payton makes 18. Sean McVay's down at 15.
He should be the highest paid coach in NFL history.
I said the same.
If it works like players, and that doesn't mean he's the best coach.
Now, if you were the owner, is that what you would do?
Yeah, Mike Florio wrote something, and Mike's a conspiracy theorist, but he is a lawyer, and he pointed out something good, so I'll give him the credit for it. There is some collusion amongst owners to keep coaching salaries down. So they don't have as much leverage as players, because a lot of people say, well, if Nick wanted to pull a Milton Williams and they were trying to lowball him from anything under 21, because I said, if I'm
Nick's agent, right? You're going for that.
Yeah. I'm starting at 21. So that's it. Nothing less than 21. And if the Eagles were trying, and I assume they were, because, why not save money when you can? Certainly possible. I would have done that. But that's why I bring up the point that Mike Florio made, where there's some collusion to keep. So you can't do what Milton Williams did and get an exorbitant amount of money somewhere else. Because they can keep it down better with the coaches.
Yeah, right.
So
it's not like quarterbacks where every time there's a new quarterback, they're the highest.
Exactly. So that's part of it. And we'll see where it comes in. Like I said,
now Nick might be the one exception to that rule, John. 4 years, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 2 times NFC champion, 1 Super Bowl win. I mean,
but what I'm saying is, like, your dad asked me, is he going to get $25 million? I said, no, he's not. No. Because they don't have to give him $25 million. If he was a player, he can get $25 million. If you want, in theory, if you want to bet on yourself and he's got a good team again, and who knows if they win the Super Bowl again, could you imagine? But it doesn't work like players. And they have been able to successfully keep it down a little bit. And there's nobody who's going to go out there and just give them the, break the bank and go up $5 million on a coaching contract.
Right.
So it's a little bit different, but I'm also of the belief that the talent is far more important than the coaching. And I always say that, and I stand on that. And to Nick's credit, Nick will tell you, you show me a good coach and I'll show you a bunch of good players.
Yeah.
You
No,
can't
Nick
win.
definitely fits in with this organization, though, John. He definitely gives them, he tells them what they want to hear. You can tell.
Yeah, well, he's very politically savvy, like I
Yes,
said.
he is.
And he does seem to have a much better pulse on keeping Jeffrey and Howie happy than Doug Peterson did, at least later. When Doug won the Super Bowl, and rightfully so, I think he was like, all right, I should get more rope, right? And I agreed with him, but they don't necessarily feel that way. And interesting, what I think this has been reported maybe a couple times, but I don't think a lot of people know this. Like, Nick doesn't report to Howie Roseman. He reports directly to Jeffrey Lurie. So I don't think a lot of people know that. So he's not some ficus plan as it was once described.
Yeah, it's not owner, GM, coach. It's
Yeah.
owner, GM reports to the owner, and the coach reports to the owner. They're two separate branches, right?
Exactly. So I don't think a lot of people know that, but that's the case. And they work well together. Howie and Nick work well together, which is also because some people have had difficulty in the past working with Howie.
Yeah, well, Nick, again, is political, and he laughs at Howie's dumb jokes, and Howie likes it, and they get along well. I'm just kidding. All right, John, I'm going to move into Joe Douglas here in this opening segment. We'll talk about him, but before I do that, I do get a hit. One of our great members dropped a big old super chat for us this morning. We appreciate it very much. Chris AM with $100 banger. Thank you so much, bro. That is big support of the channel and of the show. Thank you, Chris AM. He says, my boy Zander, happy late birthday. Thanks, man. My man, much love. This is for you, and congrats to your brother and his wife, your new niece. Much love to you and J-Mac. Always have you guys in high regard. You guys are the best. And salute Sirianni with his extension. Well-deserved. Love you all. Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Chris AM, and thank you for sending those well wishes for my brother and his wife. Make sure you send up a prayer for him, Chris. I know you're my brother in Christ. So thank you so much, brother. Appreciate that super chat. I'll get to all the other super chats here after the end of this opening segment here. And we got Caden Steele coming up in hour number 2 as well. John, let's talk Joe Douglas, man. Back. Joe Douglas has returned. You mentioned at the open, kind of failed in New York. Again, I don't know how much you want to put on Joe Douglas for that. I thought he brought in some nice talent. You're fighting an uphill battle, trying to make things work with the Jets, with that owner and things like that. What are your thoughts on Joe Douglas returning to the Eagles, or to the Eagles front office to pair up with Howie Roseman once again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great move from the Eagles' perspective. Great personnel guy, learned under Ozzie Newsome, one of the best GMs ever. People talk about Baltimore at all, harkens back to Ozzie Newsome. The personnel, the Eagles' whole grading system, it goes back to Baltimore. They still use it. It goes back to Ozzie Newsome. Everything they do is based on what Baltimore has done. So he's a great personnel guy. GM's a different job. It's like I say with head coach. It's like a coordinator versus a head coach from the perspective of it's a really, really big job. You're dealing with football operations. You're dealing with scouts. Joe's a scout, man, and that's what he does well. And that's what he'll be doing here. He doesn't have to do the other stuff that he did with the Jets. So to me, it doesn't matter what he did as a GM with the Jets. And it is much more difficult. Even Howie would have a far more difficult time doing his job with the Jets, which was, his favorite team growing up. But they're a disaster, and it's very difficult. But you see some of his drafts, not bad. Some pretty good players. And he was a big part of building the 2017 Super Bowl roster, the 2018 draft, what everyone talks about, the Jordan Mailata, Dallas Goedert draft. They only had 5 picks, but they all hit. That's Joe Douglas leading the personnel department. He brought in Andy Waddle, he brought in Ian Cunningham, guys who are gone on to much bigger jobs around the league. Yeah, I don't see any way it hurts.
You don't see any sort of power grab, not power grab. That's not the right word. You remember when you kind of discussed Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore, and you said you didn't like the setup because you didn't know kind of, who was going to have the most power in the room. Do you see anything? Now, I know obviously it's going to be Howie, but you bring Joe Douglas in. He was kind of a big name GM. He was here for a little bit. You don't see any of that happening here with these two, do you?
No, the difference is Nick didn't set it up. Howie's setting it up.
Right.
And Howie and Joe are good friends. So, I mean, they already have Dave Caldwell as a former GM, Matt Russell, who's a former de facto GM. It's part of the success they do have. And I imagine Joe will fit in that role, similar to those guys, senior executive assistant to the GM, basically a sounding board. What the problem becomes, Joe's job last time he was here was vice president of player personnel. So he was in charge of running the day-to-day of the personnel department. Right now they have two VPs of player personnel, Chuck Walzell and Wolking. That, what do you want to do there? Do you want to put Joe back in that spot and kick those guys down? That might be a problem, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be in the Dave Caldwell role, consigliere, former GM who's already here. So just another smart personnel guy. And that's how the Eagles build it, because they know they're going to lose personnel guys, as they have.
Wonder if Joe Douglas will be a guy who's, up for another GM job in the future. I don't know if that will be the case or not, but, back in Philly, I think it's a good place to come after you get fired, to try and, I don't know if he needs a rehab of his reputation, but a little bit won't hurt. So good stuff there. John, you did lose a couple of the front office guys, so I'm sure they'll do more adding at the front office, but this is a pretty big addition to kind of make up for some of those losses there, right?
Yeah, you still need Jordan Dizon was a boots on the ground guy, national scout, so they have to replace him.
Meaning like he goes to places to scout players, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, well, everybody does, but he does it full time. Like occasionally,
gotcha.
Even Howie will go out and watch somebody, usually.
Oh, right, for the right players. But, you hear we had, I forget who the guy we had on this, like, they had a bunch of guys at Rutgers, and all these different pro days and all those things. Those are the guys.
Everybody goes out, especially if it's close at times, but these are full time. The scouts are full time on the road.
Right. Gotcha.
And so they have to replace him. Brandon Hunt, again, the wording may be different, but he's more of the pro side. So if you want to make the comp, that would be the closest to Joe, but Joe's obviously at a higher level. But Brent, not now in Las Vegas. Brandon got a promotion. That's part of the reason he left. And then Anthony Patch is more on the college side. So from what I understand, Ryan Myers, who was his assistant, is probably going to get promoted to replace him. But yeah, they lost 3 bodies, so they'll probably add a couple bodies as well.
Yeah, good stuff there. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning. We got a great crowd in here. I once again want to thank our man Chris AM. A big old super chat. Your guys' super chats go a long way at helping support the show. So thank you so much, Chris AM. We're going to get to all the other super chats as well. Don't forget to hit the like button this morning. We're going to talk to Caden Steele coming up at 9:20. And Caden did confirm with me, John, this morning via email. So I'm assuming Caden will be good. We're not going to beat him up for missing on us last week. So we're looking forward to talking to him. We appreciate everybody for being here this morning. Our tax is in here. Anthony Lear, James Jones, Killer Tomato, Abe, Cody K. Appreciate each and every one of you guys.
Oh, I should mention, by the way, because we got bogged down. Nick's talking today. So Nick Sirianni.
Oh, shoot, is he? Are you going down there or just Zoom?
No, I'm going down there this afternoon, 12:45-ish. some players are going to talk to. Jalen Hurts is going to talk. So some news will be coming today, later this afternoon.
Is that something that the viewers should tune in on, or what? I mean, what do you mean news coming today?
No, just players are talking. So hopefully,
just action. Just there's some action.
Yeah, just some action.
All right, good stuff there. So looking forward to that. John, did you say what time that was? Sorry, I was
12:45-ish.
Okay.
It's always fluid.
There we go. We'll be seeing that. Life with Trucker CEO checks in. What's up, brother? Appreciate it. He says, when J Mac talks about the birds, I listen. That's a smart man right there, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the team.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate the super chat, Life.
Yeah.
Good stuff there. Cody K upgrades to a legend member. Cody K, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. One of our best viewers here, Cody K. We appreciate that very much. Killer Tomato becomes a member. Thank you, Killer Tomato. I like that nickname. How's that? Killer Tomato. That's a good one. Thank you for becoming a member, brother. Tanner checks in with a member chat. Member for 7 months. Thank you, sir, for the support. He says, seen a list from PFF yesterday, top 10 players under 25, and Jalen Carter wasn't on that list.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
We
talked about that yesterday, Tanner, on the
17th.
show.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but you know, it is.
That's crazy. I mean, how is he not a top 5?
It's an analytics site. They're basing it off grades, film grades. And again, you know, if you understand what PFF is, it's really valuable. But you have to understand what it is.
Right.
Like, all things are not created equal. Like, Milton Williams was the #1 interior pass rusher in pro football last year, and he probably was from a analytics standpoint. But one of the major reasons he was is because everybody's paying attention to Jalen Carter, and he's getting a lot of one-on-ones, which he will learn that's not going to be the same in New England. So there's all these layers to football. I talk about it all the time. That's why it frustrates me to no end when people boil things down to just complete and utter bullshit. And that's, you know, PFF does a good job, but there's limitations. And unless you understand, you know, how teams are attacking you, and with the case of the Philadelphia Eagles, and for years it was, like I said, when we used to do conference calls with opposing coaches, I say it all the time. When it was an offensive coach, all they talked about was 90. But coaches like to talk in numbers. 91 and 55, 91 and 55, 91 and 55. That's who they game plan for. Now they game plan for Jalen Carter. That's who they're worried about. That's who they're trying to manipulate. That's who they have to worry about first. And other guys have great seasons because of all the attention Jalen Carter gets. But if you just look at the film, you know, it's tough to beat a double team. It's tough to, you know, beat a chip block and coming on.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes you get graded on a play because they've handled you. And you know, Jalen Carter has the ability to reach a level that we haven't seen in Philadelphia for a very long time. A very long time. And Fletcher Cox is a borderline Hall of Fame player, but he's got more potential than Fletcher Cox.
I'm with you. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Great stuff. We got a lot of good super chats today. D Hughes checking in. What's up, D Hughes? Hope you're doing good, brother. He says, taking pushing out is good for the game. Eagles will be just as successful on the sneak without it, and you won't have plays that cause Devontae to miss games because of something preventable, i.e. the Saints hit. There you go. It's a good, not a bad take there, because you remember that play that Devontae was getting pushed.
Well, one of the things I think also modern fans don't realize, and I talk about it all the time, like they used to stop plays when forward momentum stopped. Like, you didn't get 3 opportunities to, stop, let me keep going. You know, the momentum stopped, they blew the whistle. They stopped the play for years and years and years. And it was better. from an aesthetic standpoint. The game was better. Now, I'm not saying the game has gotten uglier because there are far more the safety issues have created that far more than anything involving pushing. So there's a bunch of reasons that the game has gotten less entertaining. And that's lower on the list, but it is part of it. And what's strange, the push at the college level, and I have to look it up, the timing, because right there, the NFL should say, we don't want this when that play happens. And they just pushed him into the end zone after he was stopped. Like I was said, in the old days, he was completely stoned, Matt Leinart, from a forward momentum standpoint. In the old days, the whistles would have blown, and that would have been it. And the game would have been over. But they let the play go for an extended amount of time. Reggie Bush comes up, pushes him into the end zone. Big game at the time. I think USC was ranked number 1. And they ended up, and that's the most famous tush push of all. Long before the tush push existed was the Bush push, which was a 2005 game between USC and Notre Dame. So big, high-profile game. Same year, the NFL removed it. I'm like, what are you doing? And it took a while, but in came the issues. And they don't want it. And now they got to take it back out of the game. And now it's up to Roger Goodell, because he's the one who doesn't want it, to get 24 votes.
Right.
You're not getting 24 votes the way Green Bay worded the proposal, because it did signal, it was only about one play.
Right. It singled out the Eagles. It didn't make sense for the game as a whole.
Exactly. And it was never going to pass, and it didn't pass, or wouldn't have passed. It never came up to a vote because they knew it wouldn't pass. It was 16-16. And they had to shift it. And this is what Roger wanted anyway, to remove pushing as a whole from the game.
Yeah, and if you've heard, John, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, Roger Goodell in any podcast or show. I think he was on a couple. I think it was McAfee. Like he wants this. He wants this out. You can tell when he talks. Yeah.
Yeah. But, Roger has been around for a while. Shouldn't have put it in. There was no need for 85 years. It did not exist. You were not allowed to push. And people think 18 years is like, oh my God, what will happen to the game?
Yeah, right. I wonder what the context of it being added was. I obviously don't know. You might.
Oh, yeah. They said it was too difficult to officiate down the field. And that to me was about officials at the time. Remember when replay came into the game, and it made officials much more skittish.
Right.
Plus, they get a lot of shit. So they're estimating, like, what are you throwing more shit on us? We got to do this. We got to do that. But again, there's always unintended consequences to these things. So they didn't envision what it would do. They didn't envision that, oh, we're not going to blow the whistle, and we're just going to let the play go, and we're going to push for 30 seconds. As opposed to stopping forward momentum. All these unintended consequences. So, and by no means am I saying the tush push didn't accelerate it, because it did. If the tush push didn't exist, it would have been, yeah, right.
We might not be having we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Yeah.
It would have been not that big of a deal either way. It should be out. A few people like me had a problem with the forward momentum thing, but not enough to, and I'm not going to go screaming from the, from the Empire State Building like some of these weirdos. I just said, it's stupid. It's stupid. You should blow the whistle. But, that would have been it. So I'm not trying to say it didn't accelerate. It certainly did. But yeah, I think if you're being honest, and pushing shouldn't be involved in the game.
JD3 says, our future all-pro fullback, Harrison Bryant, doesn't need pushing. Fullback dive with Bryant will be even more deadly. So we have now made Harrison Bryant not only an all-pro tight end, but an all-pro fullback, Johnny.
Well, JJ's got to move his position because he knows he's in trouble.
I think you're right. JD, called out.
Yeah, they're not going to use the fullback enough. They might use it more, 5-10 times a game, which is more. But yeah, I wouldn't. He's got to beat out Ben Van Sumeren first to be the fullback.
Yeah. And Ben's going to be good at that. Umberto checking in. What's up, brother? He says, Eagles still have an advantage on the QB sneak without pushing. Jalen is the strongest QB with the best leg drive in the NFL. Other teams don't have that. Sounds like a Birds 365 listener right there, Johnny.
Yeah, I've been saying it for years. It doesn't matter. They were better before. But statistically, now they used it more, but not a lot. People overrate how much they use it.
I will say, I think that's something to watch. Like, what instances are they willing to use it? Are they as willing to use it if it gets, outlawed versus what they were willing to do last year?
What they're not going to do is just hand the football up to Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, right. Because that doesn't make sense.
They're going to use the quarterback sneak quite a bit. But again, I think, if you do it correctly, and I think the Eagles will do it correctly. I was saying it last year before this even came up, because teams were adjusting and loading up, trying to sell out right in front of the center and guards. And you saw some offsides. You saw some guys jumping early. At that point, I said, you know what? They should just spread them out and just let Jalen pick the hole and go. If you spread out five guys,
right,
you have to respect it, because it's AJ Brown, it's Devontae Smith, it's Saquon Barkley, it's Dallas Goedert, etc. It's not like you can not put cornerbacks on them. So all of a sudden there's a lighter box, and who's going to stop Jalen Hurts? And it's
right.
To his point of his, 600-pound squat and his strength. And that's why they were more successful in 2021 with the traditional quarterback sneak than they were last year with the tush push.
Good stuff. Tush says, Wildcat coming back. Interesting comment there. I doubt it, but good. I like the comment anyway. Suo Blaze checking in. What's up, Suo? He says, so if a running back gets stuffed at the line and his linemen push him to get the first or touchdown, can't do that then either. Same shit, going to ruin the game. Wow, Suo, not liking this one.
Yeah, Suo, the game existed before 2005. It was fine. Trust me, it was fine. Nobody talked about it. It was completely fine. In fact, most people will tell you it was a hell of a lot more entertaining in the 90s.
Well, that's not all attributed to pushing, but yeah.
No.
Yeah.
My point is the game was fine.
Right, and the game was very entertaining then too.
Yes. Nobody complained about it. Nobody. They didn't change this rule because people were complaining about it. They changed the rule because officials were complaining about it, because they were skittish about getting shit. That's why they changed the rule. It had been that way for years. And there were some pretty good running backs to the people, because I saw what Zander was pointing out, the Adrian Peterson stuff and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, Adrian didn't need too many people to push him.
No,
But occasionally,
he did it.
But occasionally. Jim Brown and Walter Payton and et cetera, they all, guess what? Couldn't push.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's good context from you, John. Appreciate it. Suo Blaze, good stuff, brother. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats. One more here, then we'll get to a break. We got Caden Steele coming up. Rich Nutt checking in. What's up, Rich? He says, given the contract with time past now, how do you explain the collapse of 2023? Rich, that is a loaded question, my friend.
Yeah, it's tough. Look, I think the biggest mistake was moving away from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. You know, some of the playoff, there's increments. They had games I think people forget because, again, everything gets revised. There were games that they were pretty successful offensively down the stretch of that season. The Arizona game, they moved the football. One of the Giants games, I think they moved the football very well. So it wasn't like they were a disaster offensively the entire time. They got blown out by San Francisco and Dallas. Now, I do think those two games sort of shook them to their core and said, all right, we're not as good as those teams at that time. So I do think that was part of it. Then you had they lost that game in Seattle. Bad decision by Jalen Hurts. They should have won that game. I think that changes things. The Arizona game, they lost 35-31. Again, moved the football pretty well, but they lost that game because the defense collapsed. If they win that game, and then the Giants game at the end didn't matter, but people forget who got hurt in that game. Like that crippled them in the playoffs. AJ, Reed Blankenship.
Right.
That crippled them in the playoffs to a certain extent. They played very poorly. So I think if you look at it and break it down individually, they had some decent games. They played okay in Seattle. They lost the game because, again, that was when they went off script, AJ and Jalen. Bad throw from Jalen, interception, lose the game. They beat the Giants the first game, scored 33 points. Again, it's the Giants. They stink. They scored 31 points. Now, 7 of it was a pick 6 by Sidney Brown, but still, they moved the football pretty well. And then the Giants game, nobody's pretty much, they pulled people anyway, and certainly after AJ got hurt. So there were pockets of decent offensive play. The defense, again, they were 8-1. Now that I have it pulled up, they were 8-1 when the bye week came. And that's when they first started considering taking the defensive play calling away from Sean Desai at 8-1, which is just batshit crazy. But that's what the expectations were that year. And they were like, oh, man, they knew they were not as good as they looked on paper. And ironically, they came out of the bye and they beat Kansas City on the road. And they beat Buffalo in that exciting overtime game. And they're 10-1 when San Francisco came in and just beat the brakes off them. And they panicked. It's, why? I don't know. Because if anything, and it's intangible, but they collapsed under the expectations. They knew they weren't good. Even at 10-1, they weren't really a 10-1 team.
Right. They knew it and it ate them alive. Do you agree with this comment here? Curtis says it looked the same the first 4 games of 24.
Yeah, for the most part. Not well, no. I mean, defensively, they were clearly better. And
They did have their problems defensively, though, in those first 4 games.
Sure.
They figured it out, yeah.
But
remember what the commentary was like, John, after that Tampa game. Nobody thought we were going to the Super Bowl at that point, including every single person in this chat. And I don't want to hear from any of them saying they were.
Well, here's the difference is and I always go back, and Martin Frank, because I was there with him sitting, he can confirm this. The Eagles during the 2023 training camp, but for what they went over to Lincoln Financial Field to practice one day to practice basically the communication between the coaches, and they took it over to Lincoln Financial Field. And we just happened to be watching, and I didn't think much of it at the time. I kind of chuckled. It was more of a funny situation where they were running drills, and Howie was on the field, and Sean wasn't paying attention, and he was trying to get his attention because they had the wrong personnel grouping on the field. And Nick was trying to get his attention. Howie was trying to get his attention, and he was doing something else. And it just looked bad. It just looked bad. That don't happen with Big Fangio. Nobody questions Big Fangio. Nobody. Not the players, not the coaches, not the head coach, not the GM, not the owner. So
Even
right
when
off the
things
bat,
aren't going well.
right off the bat, you could see the difference when it came to preparation,
Right.
and just that. Now, if you don't have talent, and Big's not a miracle worker, but whatever his group is, they're going to be prepared. They might not be good enough, but they're going to be prepared. So right off the bat, the things were different from a defensive standpoint. Did they grow during the season? Yes. Unquestionably. I mean, by the end of the season, they were just off the charts, making plays every week. Again, stopping one of the greatest offensive teams. They didn't let him cross the 50-yard line in 9 drives. Speaks for itself. But that was a growing process throughout the year. So, and then offensively, I mean, you can make a strong argument they had a better passing game in 2023 than 2024. Now, obviously, because of Saquon's presence, the running game was much better. So there was a give and take offensively. But it wasn't much difference. They were number 8 in 2023, number 8 in 2024. They were just better at passing in 2023, better at running in 2024. The big shift forward was defensively. And defensively, it was evident very, very early that they were going to be more prepared and better coached. And so it was different.
Good stuff there. Frank from Philly becomes a YouTube member. Thank you so much, Frank from Philly. Appreciate that, brother. Hope you're doing well. Good to have you back in the mix here on JAKIB Sports. Johnny Mac, great show so far today, man. Big topics here on the offseason. Always good to get some good, fresh topics. We got the Tush Push vote, or probably coming tomorrow. They're supposed to vote on the Olympic thing too, John. So we'll see about that. I'm sure they'll let that through, right? They want
that's bad too, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talked about that. They might be opening up a can of worms that they don't want to open up, but we'll see how that all shakes out. Appreciate everybody for being in here today. Again, thank you, Frank from Philly, and thanks to all of our great super chatters. Today, we got Jayden Steele coming up in about 8 minutes or 7 minutes here on Birds 365. So pretty good stuff from that perspective. John, any other Eagle news that's happening? I know you said the players speaking today at 12:45. Anything else that I missed this morning? I know we had Joe, we had Nick, and we had the Tush Push conversation.
No, nothing else. Joe Thuney got a 2-year extension in Chicago.
Yeah. That just came down a couple minutes ago, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a lot of news for the offseason.
Absolutely.
Extension, Joe Douglas back. Potential Tush Push vote tomorrow. It's not even, by the way, I shouldn't even say that. It's not a Tush Push vote. It's a vote to remove pushing from the game.
Well, before yesterday, it was a Tush Push vote, kind of.
No, it was, and that was part of the problem. If they just took, if the league took it over, if the competition committee took it over and just worded it correctly, it would have been passed at the owners' meeting back in March, April. Would have already been passed. But
John, a couple of years ago, good. If you can finish what you were saying there.
They screwed it up. Now they got to get 20. By the way, there's a chance. There's a small chance, I would say. Typically, when Roger wants something and he tables it, he gets it done. So that's what you see guys saying, or people ask, is it gonna pass? Most of us will tell you it's gonna pass because that's the history. We're just basing it on prior history. Look, if he doesn't have the votes, he'll table it again. And eventually, which I've said from day one, eventually it's going to pass. When? I can't tell you.
Now, if they table it today, though, will it be pushed to next season, or is there another owners meeting?
No, it'll be pushed to next season if they table it today. Now, even that, the NFL could change rules at the whim. I think a lot of people.
I know. They'll say we're having a special meeting to bring this to a resolution.
So yeah, most likely it'll be pushed to next year, and they'll deal with it, and it'll go to the competition committee, and they will do it the right way this time, and it'll pass next spring meetings, next annual league meetings in March. So the best case scenario for Eagles fans that desperately want it in the game is one more year. Best case scenario.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's going. So
I agree. We'll see what happens with that. That should be coming down tomorrow. So we got a bunch of stuff going on this week still. Again, some players will talk today. Nick Sirianni is expected to speak today as well. So Johnny Mack will be taking a trip down to the NovaCare complex. Looking forward to that. John, make sure you get down there safely. We appreciate all of you guys for being here. Hit that like button for us. We'll be right back here on Birds 365. We got Jayden Steele coming up. All right, I'm looking forward to talking to Jayden. He missed this last week, but we're going to get him up here coming up in a couple of minutes here on Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here in the offseason. We got about 107 days until the banner drop in the opener versus the Dallas Cowboys. It's moving quickly right along here in the offseason. We got Jayden Steele coming up here on Birds 365 in just a minute. John, before we do that, I do want to get to one more super chat that we got during the break. And Juan, thank you, sir, one of our great supporters. And Juan Atkins, we appreciate you, brother. He says, you think if McNabb had this offense today, do you think this offense would be #1 or top 3? And do you think he would have won that Super Bowl we lost? That's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean,
I like to feel like the offense would be it would look different, that's for sure, right?
there's a lot. I mean, like Donovan changed his game because he felt he had to. Like, he was a tremendous runner as well, and felt he needed to become more of a pocket quarterback. But I mean, if he grew up, it's so tough to play the time machine game, because if he grew up in this era, he probably never changes the way he plays the position. And he was a great dual threat. So it's hard to say, but that I would say the Eagles offense actually underachieved. Well, the Eagles passing offense underachieved. I don't even think that's controversial last year. And part of the reason why is because the rushing offense was so good. So there's a bunch of layers to that as well. But when you have the talent that they have offensively, and you have some of the games they had passing the football, that's why nobody was happy with it. It was like, why is this so hard? And it shouldn't have been. So, there's unintended consequences to everything. I use that term all the time.
Johnny Mac freeze up on me, or is that me? I think Johnny Mac froze up on me here. Give me a sec. I'll get Johnny Mac back up. We got Jayden Steele in the green room, so I'll bring up Jayden Steele in just a second. Just give me a chat check. Make sure everybody's still with me in the chat. I want to make sure it's me. It's John, not me. Yeah, John froze. Okay, so I'll get John up in a second. His internet might have just dropped for a second. Normally no issues with John there on the internet, so we'll get to him just a second. We do have Jayden Steele in the green room, so I'll get to Jayden Steele. Let me see if I can get Johnny Mac back up here before we get Jayden Steele. And I do have an extra super chat, so I'll hit on that in the meantime. Thank you guys for all the support today. Great super chats today. A lot of great support on the show. So good stuff there. Appreciate that. And I do have Johnny Mac back. So let me get Johnny Mac back up. John froze out for just a second. John returns to us now. Suo, one more super chat, John, then we'll get to Jayden. Suo says, take out pushing and hurts us in many ways. We got to watch our $80 million offensive line just stand there and not finish plays. That's a joke. Boy, Suo hates this rule change, John.
Yeah, I mean, how much do you guys think they used the tush push?
Well, it wasn't a lot of plays, but they were critical plays, Well,
anytime it's, third or fourth and short, it's critical play. But I just think I think you've been gaslighted into oblivion. I really do. I mean, there's this assumption, like, it's just not that big of a deal, guys. It was more of an intangible bullying effect than anything. I think that's where you're hurt the most, because it did seem it did seem unstoppable, and you had this sort of will type. All right, we're screwed with the defense. So that part I'm not going to downplay. I think that's real. But again, from just a statistical standpoint, they were better before it than with it. And I think you've been gaslighted.
I don't think it's as guaranteed as you and Jeff that they're going to be better now than they were before, just because they were at one point. Like, I'm curious to see what it looks like.
I think
I'm not saying they're not going to be successful. I'm just saying I'm a little bit more cautiously optimistic.
Well, I'm talking about last year. It got incrementally worse.
Right.
I'm not
like
necessarily
or 89%
now
last year.
They were ahead. If you go to 2021 is the last season they didn't use it. 2021, and it was like 91.9% success rate on quarterback sneaks. Now in 2022, they were a little bit higher than that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Last year, they were way below that. Way below that. So I'm saying last year, I'm guaranteeing it's going to be better than last year. And by the way, they ran it 34 times last year. And if you want to go to on fourth down, I guess, from next gen stats, and then 51 total, which by the way, 76.5%. 76.5%. You've been fucking gaslighted, guys. and part of that is, part of it is you when you're when you're 3rd and 2, you might run it twice. So part of that is, and they end up getting it anyway. So I'm not trying to dismiss that at all, because that's real. Part of it is they have more confidence, so they're going to run it a little bit more. I'm not dismissing that at all. But at the end of the day, 51 times. 51 times.
Yeah. It reminds me of the show, John, that we had where we were using that Malcolm X quote over and over again. You've been had, you've been took, you've been bamboozled, you've been hoodwinked.
Yeah, you've been gaslighted is what has happened. I'm sorry. It's not going to affect the team in a great fashion. You can boil it down to one play and one situation. And maybe it's 4th and 1 in the Super Bowl to win the Super Bowl. And it'd be nice to have the tush push.
Right. I'm curious to see how it's officiated and stuff moving forward, but we'll see. We'll see how all that stuff shakes out, and we'll get the vote on that presumably tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. Let's get to our man Jayden Steele here. Johnny Mackey's in the green room for us now. Jayden, thanks for your patience. He joins us now. You can follow him over on X and read all his work at nj.com. Jayden, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Tuesday morning? Good to see you.
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
What's up, Jayden? All right, I'm going to ask you, have you been gaslighted with the tush push? We're going to get to more important issues, but where are you with the tush push?
I mean, I think the banning it itself is dumb because the reasoning makes no sense, like pace of play and injury.
Well, that I agree with. The reasoning.
The reasoning is dumb. Will it affect the Eagles? Will the Eagles lose 2 or 3 more games next year because they don't have the tush push? No. I mean, they're still going to be a really good football team. I do think it's ridiculous, though, that the NFL is doing it. But obviously, it's going down the path where it seems like it's probably going to get banned. There's a reason they're voting on it again. They're really trying to push it. All likelihood, the tush push is probably gone. I mean, and then at this point, honestly, I'm tired of talking about that.
I know. I am too.
You had like separate weeks of the offseason where we've had to dedicate to the tush push.
Yeah.
And John, I heard you before I came on. Like, I mean, the amount we've been talking about it for the times they use it is like,
it's insane.
It is a little crazy, but yeah, I think it's unfair that what the NFL.
I don't want to pick on, but Jeff Carr, buddy, put out the stats, so good for him. And I said one of his, and I'm not going to bring it up, but one of the guys who's ripping Jeff said I guarantee they're going to run it 100 times less than they did last year. Well, they ran it 51 times, so they have to do it negative 49 times. These people are nuts. They think they run it like 300 times a year.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me how bad people have been gaslighted with this. But anyway.
Kaden, do you think they will be as successful though without, like, all right, pushing is removed from the game. Now you assume I would assume they're going to run regular quarterback sneaks. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is still a beast with the squatting and everything. You still have a beastie offensive line. All of them are 6'8" for crying out loud. Do you think they will be as successful without the tush push?
I think they might be a little bit not as successful, but I don't think there's going to be this dramatic drop off where they're 50 or 60% instead of whatever they've been.
Yeah, right. No,
I still think they're going to be pretty efficient at it. But
yeah.
I mean, it's a good play. I mean, it works. There's a reason people
does work.
It didn't work last year as often as people think it did, but I digress. But I want to get back to bigger issues, and that's Nick Sirianni's contract extension. Not that was a thought that it wasn't going to happen, but and Nick's going to talk today at some point. But your thoughts on Nick Sirianni and where he is as the head coach of this team? Because I get a lot of people talk about Jalen Hurts disrespect and people saying, well, he won the Super Bowl. And then those same people don't give Nick Sirianni respect. Like, why? All right. How does that differ? Where are you with Nick Sirianni?
Deserving of that contract extension for sure. I know I saw the stuff out there yesterday. Some people were still putting on Twitter like they're not sure if he's still a good coach or not. But at some point, you have to look at the resume. I mean, he's made the playoffs every year. He's made 2 Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl. To me, even more impressive, I think it speaks to Nick Sirianni's coaching is not only the 2 biggest things for me is the fact, one, that they did bounce back last year. I know they were talented. They improved their roster. Howie did a good job. But if that team didn't believe in Nick Sirianni, they didn't follow his message, they could have crumbled still. I mean, that team balled in last year, and he bounced back. And to me, that's the epitome of a good coach is how you adjust, how you're willing to make changes, how you listen to your players. And I think Nick Sirianni does a great job of that. I mean, and even if you want to go back to 2021, I mean, that team wasn't very good. And that was Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter, and he got him to the playoffs. So I think every step of the way that Nick Sirianni's been the coach of the Eagles, he's done a good job. 2023 was shaky. Obviously, at the end of the year, they collapsed, but he rebounded the next year. And, I think he's a little disrespected, but he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Maybe not the best schemer, but ultimately, I don't think that's the thing that's the most important thing as an NFL coach. Because you look at Kyle Shanahan, probably a better, play caller, schemer than Nick Sirianni, but hasn't won as much. I think Nick Sirianni is one of the best coaches in the NFL, well deserving of a big time raise. I mean, I'm sure we'll find out the numbers later, but he should be a top 5 coach in the NFL.
Should be number 1. That's what if I were Nick's agent, I'd say, all right, who's number 1? I want $1 million more than that. Why wouldn't you?
Or at least the same as Andy.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Kaden, I want to ask you about the expectations, and forgive me if this is a little long-winded, but it's all fine and dandy right now, right? You win the Super Bowl. Nick's got the new deal. We put out the press release. Well, Nick's been everything we wanted. Well, just a season prior, Kaden, Jeffrey Lurie was thinking about some things after the collapse of 2023, and that was a season that they won 11 games. It wasn't like they were 4-13. They won 11 ball games, and Nick Sirianni was, for lack of a better term, on the hot seat, or at least his job was being reviewed. So what does he have to do to maintain this? You go back to Doug Peterson, and many thought, John, I always use John's quote from the time. You think it would be a lifetime dispensation card. It wasn't. It was 3 years, and he was out the door. What does Nick Sirianni have to do now with big expectations, now a big bag of money to go with it? How do you think he sustains the success that's desired by the owner? And it's obviously a high bar.
Yeah, I think they consistently have to be probably. I mean, you look at the roster right now. I know they kind of retooled the defense a little bit, but 10 of 11 offensive starters coming back. So the offense under Kevin Patullo, at least for this season and going forward, has to be really good. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie talks about that all the time, about having elite offenses, and that matters to him. So I think that has to keep up. In terms of winning, I mean, this is a team that is young for the most part, especially on defense. Still pretty young on offense. They have most of their core together. I'm sure they're going to lock up Jalen Carter going forward next offseason. This is a team that should be in the divisional round NFC Championship consistently, for the next 4 or 5 years in that range.
Those sustained, what did Jeffrey call it? Sustained success.
Yeah,
that's what he has to have.
I agree. I think it's got to be that NFC champ. I think divisional rounds like the baseline. Like I think they have to win a playoff game consistently and be in that NFC championship mix for the next 4 or 5 years, because this roster is that good. I mean, as much credit as I'm willing to give Nick, I mean, it's a little bit easier when you have all pros all over your offense and your defense is stacked and you have a coordinator like Vic Fangio. I think the pressure is going to be high. I mean, this is not a team that can win 9-8 games.
So how quick does it, because I always talk about the unintended consequences of things. The unintended consequence of getting a big raise is raised expectations as well. And it happened to Doug Peterson, as Zander pointed out. How quickly, you mentioned divisional round, so I'm going to give you a scenario. First round and out consecutive seasons. Is Nick on the hot seat because of his salary?
Probably.
That's how quickly it can happen.
Yeah, I think he would be. I mean,
Yeah,
especially with the way they're currently constructed. I mean, that would be a disappointment if they lost in the first round in consecutive years. I know it's tougher said than done, but I mean, you look at this team, you look at the NFC currently. You can say maybe the Lions or the Rams, but this is a team that you expect to be back in the Super Bowl in the next 2 years with the way they're built. So 2 first-round playoff exits, he'd be really on the hot seat. I mean, I imagine the offense didn't go well in that scenario, because I still think the defense is going to be good under Vic. I mean, I think that's the big question mark.
I got more questions on the defense right now.
Well, personnel-wise, for sure, right?
Yeah.
I'm with you in terms of, you know what you're getting in Vic Fangio, Caden.
Well, I just said with Vic, I know they're going to be prepared. I know they're going to be taught well. But guess what? If Aziz Ojulari can't play, if Andrew Makuba's not ready to play, if Sidney Brown can't play, if Kaylee Ringo can't play, if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Smile Munden can't play, if Vic's not a miracle worker, they lost good, proven players. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. Even if you want to go to obviously Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, even if you want to go down to Oren Burks as a solid veteran, players like that, they lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball. And to me, to expect them to be number one and all that kind of stuff, that's pie in the sky. I expect the offense to be number one, and they were number 8 last year. But they got to pick it up. Or am I crazy offensively? Where are you with the offense on this team?
I think you are right, and I think they made that bet by letting go of some of these defensive players. I think in their mind, they can continue to draft young defensive players. They'll pay their core guys, but everyone else is expendable to a certain extent. And I think it's part of Jeffrey's philosophy that you win championships through the offense. And I know they did it defensively last year. They were a better defense than offense, but going forward, I think that's what they believe, is that they can get by on defense with Vic by maybe not having as much talent, but Vic Fangio is a good coach. We can get this to be a top 10 unit, get them to overachieve a little bit, and then offensively, I mean, that's where they're going to have to be really good. And I agree. I mean, defensively, I'm still really concerned about this edge group. You mentioned Aziz Ojulari. Like, Aziz Ojulari hasn't been healthy his entire career. Josh Uche hasn't been good since 2022. Look, I'm high on Jalen Hunt. It's a very small sample size. I don't know if he's ready to become a full-time starter yet. Nolan Smith, although really impressive at the end of the year, is he ready to become like a legit number 1 pass rusher? I think so, based off what we saw in the playoffs. But still, it's kind of a small sample size. And the rest of that edge room, I mean, Bryce Huff, who knows what that is? I mean, I think there are more concerns going into this year about the defense. I don't know what Keely Ringo is. I mean, we haven't seen him play a lot. We've seen small action in the preseason. But at the end of the day, he was a 4th-round pick. I mean, Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm more worried about the defense, and the offense is going to have to be better. I mean, last year the run game was so good, and I still expect it to be good, but the pass game, I mean, I know people don't like but the pass game does have to be more consistent. And
how dare you, Caden? How dare you bring up the problems in the past? I'm joking because I do it all the time, and I get shit upon pretty consistently. But yeah, it was, I always say don't listen to me. Listen to Jalen, listen to AJ, listen to Devontae, listen to Lane Johnson, listen to George, because they were saying the same thing. But when you win the Super Bowl, it masked everything. And they got to get better offensively. But to your point defensively, here's the problem. You're right. They've been building, and obviously it worked to a brilliant degree last year with young players. But now they got to start paying some of those young players. It already started with Zach Bond, and that worked out from a free agency perspective. Jalen Carter's got to get paid next year. Maybe Nolan Smith, if he turns into that pass rusher you're expecting. What does Nolan Smith make on his extension? And then the year after that, you got to deal with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So you can't just say repopulate when you get really good players. And they're going to have to pay those guys in theory. So what happens at that point? Then you can't have 57 All-Pros on offense. That's Howie's puzzle.
Yeah. It's going to be tough. I mean, you can't, like you said. I mean, I know Goddard will be gone probably in a year or so. You have a rookie tight end. That'd be one step, get another rookie contract in. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to make some tough decisions on defense. Like, I mean, I know Nakobe Dean's a guy that they like, but you're going to pay Nakobe Dean after all these years? Probably not. I mean,
I don't even think they're going to be able to pay the big four of Carter, Smith, Cooper, and Quinyon when all those come up. I mean, think about it. This is a lot of guys to pay on defense.
I mean, yeah, and I think if they do pay for it, those are the four. So then do you let go of Reed Blankenship? I know everyone's talked about him being a contract extension candidate, but is that a guy you're willing to let go? Because you drafted Makuba. Maybe you like Sidney Brown behind the scenes enough to I mean, is that a guy that you want to pay going forward? I know he's on a short-term deal. I mean, you're not going to be able to afford everyone. And John, that's a good point. I mean, what are you going to do with Jordan Davis? Can you get him for the cheap after his fifth year? They're going to have some tough decisions to make because, like you said, there's a lot of good defensive players. You're not going to be able to pay everyone. Are you going to have a revolving door at CB2? Like, is Keely Ringo going to play out his contract, and then you're going to just keep drafting young guys at the opposite spot? I mean, maybe that's one way you try to get by until you can figure out this financial situation.
What are you guys at all concerned? I feel like this has been quiet, but Nolan Smith did suffer a triceps tear in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, is there any concern with him coming back? Because technically after this year, he'd be extension eligible or at least fifth year option eligible. I think that's something to watch with the tricep tear. I don't know if it's not bad or it's not, there's no fear with that, but I don't think we've talked about it much. I'm wondering to see kind of what happens with Nolan Smith coming up this year because the edge room's kind of relying on him, Kate, and we just listed out the edge rushers. There's not many proven commodities in there. So that's one of my concerns coming into the season. What do you think about that?
I don't know the severity, and I know usually upper body, those type of injuries aren't long term,
Yeah,
I'm
not concerned. I'm not concerned. I mean, that Brandon came back too soon from that. Obviously, he had to sign a waiver, and he re-tore his triceps. I mean, Nolan will plenty of time to rest it. It'll be completely healthy. I'm more concerned from the perspective that he's 240 pounds and they're probably giving him some weight, and he's got to push and pull against 330-pound offensive tackles every week. Is he going to hold up over a 20-game season? Because as Caden points out, the Eagles want to go deep into the playoffs. Can he play starting level snaps for 20 games a season? That's my biggest concern with Nolan Smith. But yeah, that's not an injury. That injury is going to heal, and he's going to be.
I think
fine.
you bring up the better part of it, John. Is the full body of work, the full sample size with the size of him. Is that a concern?
Yeah, And then the NFL, somebody on Twitter pointed out that, the Eagles and the Ravens were the first teams. I thought it was going to be the Patriots. I've talked about this before, but like everybody's going light on defense, and the Eagles and Ravens woke up and said, you know what? We're going to push you around. We're going to play bully ball. Our other team's going to figure that out, because the Eagles are they're going the same way on defense. Like I always say, the Eagles defense couldn't stop the Eagles offense. The Eagles defense is undersized. So if they were up against the Eagles offense, they'd be getting bullied.
Yeah. And that's my biggest concern about the edge group. There's not a single guy in there that's a big edge setter, run stuffer type. Jalen Hunt is a little light. Nolan is. Ojulari and Uche are kind of small. Antoine Powell-Ryland is undersized. Bryce Huff's undersized. They're banking on speed being more, and Nolan Smith's a powerful player. He does hold up.
Yeah, he's very good against the run for his size. He really is. And that was his reputation coming out of Georgia. He really didn't produce as a pass rusher at Georgia. He was great against the run. And he is a very violent player. He's a very interesting player because he is so undersized and he is so physical. But can that hold up? That's my concern. Not that he can't do it. He's already proved he can do it. But at some point, the Chip Kelly mentality comes into it. Well, bigger guys are going to beat up little guys. And if they keep wearing on you week after week after week after week, that's when you break down. That's my biggest concern with Nolan Smith.
Yeah, I'm concerned what they do. Like you said, I think Zander, you bring up a good point. I don't know if the injury will affect him long term, but what if he does get hurt and you're down to, Jalen,
Jalen? I cannot believe I've said this for pretty much Caden the entire offseason. I cannot believe they're not going to make another move at edge rusher. I refuse to believe it.
I feel like they have to. I know it's not going to be Trey Hendrickson because that's impossible with the cap thing. But you would think maybe if there's a guy out there that is on the final year of his rookie deal, at some point in August, they're looking at one of these guys that maybe will get moved. I don't know. I know before the draft, I think Adam Schefter speculated Adolfo away from the Ravens. I'm not saying he's available or anything, but a player of that,
player like that,
of that level, they would be interested in because this edge room is thin and it could cause significant problems. The secondary won't be as good next year. And if we're being honest with Keely Ringo, probably than it was with Darius Slay. So the coverage probably not going to hold up as much either. Gonna have to get there even faster. I just don't know how well that bodes with this current room.
No doubt about it. The other big news there, Caden, yesterday was that Joe Douglas returned to the front office. What is your initial reaction to Joe Douglas coming back? Because I will say they lost a few guys there from the front office this year. That's part of being a great front office. What do you think of Joe Douglas returning?
Yeah, it's a good thing, and they needed to restock, get a guy that you're familiar with who did a really good job with some of those draft classes. I think it was a part of 2018 as well. So he's well respected. How he trusts him, I think it's a good move. Obviously he was looking to get back into football. I think he was blamed for a lot of what happened in New York, but he has some really good draft classes in New York too. If he didn't miss Zach Wilson, I think that's the big. He missed on Zach Wilson, so everyone thinks that he did a horrific job. But Woody Johnson has shown that he's a pretty bad owner in the NFL. The Jets haven't been good for a long time, so I think this gives Joe Douglas a second chance of being a GM possibly as well. Maybe not right away, but in a couple of years, because obviously he's well respected. Saw him on some podcasts recently, or and on the draft show for Fox. So obviously he missed being part of football, but I think it's a good thing for the Eagles. They need to get someone else in there after losing multiple guys this offseason.
All right, Caden, we haven't talked to you since the schedule release. I think it could have gone worse. There's some strange anomalies, no back-to-back home games. Obviously, on paper, the first place schedule looks daunting. Anything jump out with you from the schedule standpoint?
Those last 3 weeks, when you play Washington twice and you play Buffalo on the road, that is going to be a significant test because you want to be playing your best football going into the playoffs. and that's not easy.
Here's the thing, though, Caden. If there's one team I'm going to guarantee wins their division next season, it's the Buffalo Bills. And that's because of the AFC East is a freaking disaster area besides Buffalo.
Yeah.
I doubt they're going to need that game. And so all of a sudden, who knows? Maybe they're resting people. Now, there's a potential that they could be fighting somebody for the number 1 seed and they have to play. So it could go either way. But all of a sudden, you look at these things in the spring and say, oh, that looks daunting. And say, week 16 might be for all the marbles in the NFC East. And if you win that game, week 18 might not matter. So what looks so difficult on paper could end up not being that big of a deal. And that's why I look at the first 4 games. I go, that's when things could go wrong. And really not Dallas, because I don't think Dallas is ready. But at Kansas City, the LA Rams at Lincoln Financial Field, who I think are the ascending team in the NFC, along with Washington, and at Tampa Bay, which has been a house of horrors for the Eagles, in September, in Tampa, when the humidity is probably going to be 150 again. I'm making up numbers because it's so sticky down there. That is dangerous to me. Kansas City, at Kansas City, LA Rams at Tampa Bay.
I would add the next week against Denver as well. We talk about ascending teams. I think that's the team that's going to continue to ascend with Sean Payton, the AFC. That 4-week stretch is tough and ugly. And look, Tampa Bay, in all fairness, the last 2 times they've played them, it's been just an ugly mess. Like 2023, they're completely falling off. They didn't have A.J. Brown and Reed Blankenship last year. They didn't have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson. I mean, they haven't had Tampa Bay in a fair shot in a while. The last time they did was early in 2023, and they won that game. But it's still going to be hot. Tampa Bay is a really good team, and that's just tough conditions to play in. I mean, the Rams, I think, got better slightly this offseason with the upgrade of Devontae Adams over Cooper Kupp. Like I said, I think Denver is good. I mean, I think the defense is really good. They added Dre Greenlaw and Toluna Hafagana from the 49ers. They got their running back in the draft.
I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I mean, he did better than I expected, but
maybe I'm on the opposite. I think I'm a Bo Nix. I'm a Bo Nix guy under Sean Payton. I think he just does so well with quarterbacks that he's going to continue to get more,
especially that type of quarterback, right?
I think Denver's defense and stylistically, I think they match up pretty well with the Eagles. I think both their fronts are pretty good. Their offensive line's pretty solid. Their defensive line's pretty solid. I do not think that's going to be an easy game at all.
All right. I wasn't even worried about Denver. Now you're bringing up Denver concerns. I like
How close are the Commanders this year to us, Caden? How much did they close the gap?
Yeah, maybe I'm on the other end of this opinion. I'm not a huge fan of what the Commanders did, honestly. I still think they're I like what they did in the draft. I like the Connerly pick. I mean, it's a smart pick. You continue to build the line. I like Trey Amos. I didn't love the go all in for Laramie Tunsil like Deebo Samuel. You're betting on Deebo Samuel, who hasn't been good.
I'm not a big Deebo guy.
He hasn't been good,
especially with no Kyle Shanahan. Kyle uses him correctly.
Yeah,
manufactured touches, blah blah blah.
Yeah, Kyle.
Although I do like Cliff Kingsbury as well, but he's more of a spread guy, and I don't think Deebo can run routes. I think you need to get him the ball. You have to be disciplined to get him the football. And I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. But while I say that, and to your point about Laramie Tunsil, those guys are better than what they had. So they're getting better. Tunsil's a good player. Samuel's better than whatever direct they were throwing out there, Dynamic Brown, opposite Terry McLaurin. So they're getting better, and I'm all in on Jayden Daniels. I think the guy's phenomenal. I think he's going to be a pain in the ass for a long time for Eagles fans. I just think he's great. I really do.
Yeah, I'm all in on Jayden Daniels as well. I still think they're a year away from overtaking the Eagles because I mean, I don't know. I think Larry Tunsil's been a really good player, but Houston had a terrible offensive line last year, and they were willing to get rid of him, which I think kind of speaks volumes. He led the league in penalties. I mean, there's a chance that he's regressing. I think it was very boom or bust type moves. Like if you could get Debo motivated, he stays in the proper playing weight and he's healthy again. And then Cliff Kingsbury, I think it's a lot of what if with those moves where I like the way I thought it would be better if they just continued to get young. I know they had some cap space to spend, but like, I don't know. I like what they did in the draft. I didn't love what they did in free agency. I think Jayden Daniels is great, but I still think this roster is kind of old. I don't think they have any edge rushers that make you like their best edge rushers are like Cleo Farrell and Dorrance Armstrong. Like I still think that their defensive line is not as good as it once was. They lost Jonathan Allen. Bobby Wagner wasn't very good last year. I still think there's a lot of holes on this Commanders team, but Adam Peters has had some good drafts already. I think they have a bright future. And Jayden Daniels, like you said, John, I mean, that guy is the closest thing to Patrick Mahomes I think I've seen. So, I mean, it's 1 year. So maybe I want to pump the brakes because we saw what happened to CJ Stroud. But I don't think that's going to happen to Jayden Daniels.
I didn't want to – I brought up Greg Rosenthal, who for years worked for NFL media. And you know, yesterday, bad timing, man. Bad timing. He and JP Acosta came out with their best it was actually an NFL coaches draft. I shouldn't say best coaches. So I misrepresented that, but just bad timing. And I bring it up because we were talking about Washington. So it's a coaches draft. In other words, you know, they went back and forth. So Andy Reid was 1, Sean McVay was 2, Dan Campbell was 3, Kevin O'Connell was 4. You get it. They're going back and forth. Dan Quinn was 14th. Nick Sirianni was 15th on the day he got his extension. The Super Bowl winner, the first modern coach to make 4 consecutive postseason berths, 2 Super Bowls, win a Super Bowl. Nobody else has done it. 15th pick in the coaches draft.
I feel like a lot of this has to do with like Nick's personality. Like a part of it has to do with him shaving his head and being like, you know,
well, he's a goofball, but who cares? Yeah. I mean,
I think, but people let that stuff creep into their mind when they're making their rankings. And like, well, I don't get Dan Quinn over Nick Sirianni. Like Dan Quinn did an incredible job last year.
I think Dan Quinn's a good coach, but yeah, I mean, come on.
But we've also seen Dan Quinn fall apart in Atlanta. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. Woof.
Yeah, I'm with you. But yeah, it's interesting to see the disconnect from the success. But that's the thing. And Nick knows it. Jalen knows it too at the quarterback position. They say it all the time. It's part of the job. I mean, it comes to people will always point, and it happened. They're so similar in the fact that people say, well, yeah, but they got the best talent. Well, okay. I mean, can you point to the shitty team that won the Super Bowl? Because I don't think that team exists. You can say, well, they had a bad quarterback, they had this, they had that, but they were all good teams. You don't win Super Bowls. You magically don't win a Super Bowl with a bad team. So I never get that criticism. But that's part of it for coaches and quarterbacks. They get more credit when they win than probably deserved, and way more blame when they lose than they deserve. It's just part of it. Yeah. And Nick's in that mode. But at least he's getting paid. We'll find out eventually, but he's getting paid a lot. I guarantee.
It better not be under 18. I'll be pissed at Nick's agent, but we'll see what happens. Caden, we appreciate you joining today, brother. Make sure you guys go and follow Caden on X at Caden_Steele19. Appreciate you doing it. Covers the Eagles for NJ.com. We'll read all your work there. Caden, we appreciate you joining today, brother. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, man?
Thank you.
All right.
See you, bud.
Joining us here on Birds 365. Great job by Caden Steele today. Johnny Mack, good stuff from him. We got a couple super chats we'll get to, but good stuff from Caden today, Johnny Mack, as we wrap up this Tuesday edition.
Yeah, thanks to the Eagles. You're getting us through the offseason with some news. And the NFL will be helping out over the next couple of days. Although I wish we could fast forward to Thursday because I really am sick of the tush-push conversation. But
yeah, me too.
But
it's an inevitable conversation we're going to be having, Johnny Max.
Yeah.
So get used to it for a couple days here. Devin Shanahan checks in. He says, I'll take a guy with some say over a coffee boy. Oh, man, Devin.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, seriously. I mean, and thanks, Devin. I appreciate the contribution in it. But, like, you can't possibly know, like, what he does. Like, I'm always interested in the mindset of people that say stuff. And maybe it's a shtick, and if it's a shtick, I apologize. But it's like, how do you know what Nick does? Like, objectively, how? Like, you're just making this assessment out of what? Thin air.
I took Devin to the cleaners on this comment yesterday. You can take him to the cleaners today, too. He's a great supporter of ours.
I appreciate that. But, and again, if it's just stick, because some people, Pumper will come in with this stick and it's obvious. So some people, it's less obvious. But there's a lot of people who believe that Nick Sirianni does nothing. And it's a really fucking big job. And it's way bigger than play calling, which people think is the be all end all. Way bigger. So I compared it with Joe Douglas earlier about Joe and personnel. Joe's great with personnel. When he got the bigger job, it became much more difficult. Then you got to deal with contracts. You got to deal with all different things. You got to deal with you got to deal with rules, shit like tush push, all this stuff. You got to deal with logistics as a head coach. It's such a bigger job than people realize. And number one, getting all these guys on the same page, which is really, really difficult. And nobody's done it better than Nick Sirianni.
Good stuff there. Killer Tomato checking in. Love this name. Killer Tomato, thank you for the support today, brother. He says Sirianni must coach a game with no assistance and Hurts must play all by himself and beat a full team. Only then will people respect.
Probably.
Good point.
But it works both ways. Like, because I get a lot of criticism from the Jalen Hurts truthers that you can't criticize anything. I mean, they're like, how dare you point out that, hey, the passing game wasn't. So it works both ways. And when they do win, and they won at the highest level, and they won the Super Bowl, but it's interesting from that standpoint how things shift. So you have two camps, and as usual with two camps, you have two extremes, and the normal people are in the middle, but the only people that scream are the two extremes. And the objective people are left out in the wind going, what the hell are you talking about? Of course you need help to win the Super Bowl. Of course you need a good talent level. Like, why is that even a discussion? Seriously, why is that even a discussion? Of course. Who wins the Super Bowl without a good team?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It's like, oh, well, he's got a good team. Oh, thanks. Yes, he does. Nick has a very good team.
Suo checking in. Suo is very upset about the tush push today. He says, we weren't running QB sneaks from 2+ yards. These stat nerds need to actually watch football saying we were better before. It's a whole different play.
Nobody's saying it's not a different play. Nobody said it's funny, stats matter when they matter to fans, and they don't matter when they don't matter to fans. Like, if you keep moving the goalpost, I can't help you. I've explained this it backwards and forwards. I don't know if you were the person that said they used it all this time. You've been gaslighted. They weren't even that successful with it last year, mainly because, again, false starts, lining up off sides. They failed much more than they typically did. But you've been gaslighted. Half of the people believe they use it 300 times, evidently. Other people think the percentage is higher than it is. You've heard the term perfected to ad nauseum. Last I looked, 76.7% isn't perfection. Perfection is 100%, which they were in 2017. That's perfection. And to the people that say, oh, it's going to ruin the game was this way for 80 years. You guys just don't know. It's only been this way for 19 years. Jim Brown, Walter Payton, every great running back in the history of mankind existed with no pushing. It's not going to change the game at all. At all. You've been gaslighted, but thank you.
One more, Brian Pumper. I don't think he liked that you called him out for the shtick, John. He says, have you all ever seen a commissioner this biased in professional sports? Can the beat reporters do their job and ask the real questions? Pumper taking shots now.
Well, we do our job, Brian, but Pumper, even though we know that's a fictional name, you don't do your job because you don't have the information, which I give you the information. And I call out the NFL when they should be called out for, like with seating issues, like with placing safety dogma as a sort of crutch for everything they want accomplished, because it is hypocritical. Call them out all the time. I guarantee the vast majority of people that have been gaslighted had no idea that this was the rule for 80 years. No idea. And they think, oh, in fact, I even had somebody on Twitter say, what do you mean it was the rule for 80 years? Misunderstood. No pushing was the rule for 80 years. Pushing was the rule for 19 years. So all your beloved Eagles fans, 2005 and prior players, all dealt with it. You dealt with it as fans if you're of that age. And you had no freaking idea. It shouldn't be in the game. It's a detriment to defensive football. Philadelphia is a defense first town. Always has been. Stand up for the defense then.
Good point. Johnny Mac. Pumper, take a seat. See you, Brian Pump. Good stuff there. Johnny Mac, great show today. A Tuesday edition of the show. We had good Nick Sirianni news. We had good Joe Douglas returns news. There's one comment, John, before I let you go, I got to ask you about. All right. This is Bob Brown. All right. He checks in. I think you'll say no to this, but I'm curious to hear. Bob Brown says, J-Mac, Lurie's involved in every aspect of the front office. Even the head coach reports directly. Was bringing Douglas back more of a Howie call, or was it Lurie? Howie's due a contract, and Lurie plans ahead. I'm not going down that route, but what do you say, John?
No, I no. It's a Howie move. Jeffrey trusts Howie implicitly, as I pointed on this show, this very show. I don't think a lot of people know that Nick does not report to Howie. I've said it before. I explain it all the time. I can't help people. He doesn't. He reports to Jeffrey Lurie directly. But no, he trusts Howie implicitly. Probably too implicitly. Yeah, Howie can do what he wants, but
yeah, I agree.
With the exception of, again, in his purview, and his purview is football operations scouting. He can do what he wants. Jeffrey's not stepping in for Joe Douglas. And Howie and Joe are close. Why wouldn't he want Joe Douglas back if he can get Joe Douglas back?
Yeah, if anything, I kind of saw it as maybe more of a favor to Joe Douglas. Now, I think Joe's good. I think he's actually worthy of the job. But I'm saying, hey, man, I got fired. Can I come back and kind of?
I think it is. I think it 100% is.
Right, get myself back in good graces.
He's done it. He's done it in the past for big time executives. Dave Caldwell's still here. Matt Russell's still here.
Right.
They've done it in the past they'll bring in former GMs as senior executives. They do it every year. If guys are willing, they have guys in at training camp, even like Steve Keim. I thought he was going to be in because he was at training camp, probably feeling them out and where he wanted to be. And some guys don't want to do it because they want to be in the mix for GM jobs. Yeah, it happens all the time with the Eagles. So, I mean, Howie's Yeah, Howie can do what he wants when it comes to the personnel, and he's earned that right. He's earned
I agree.
that
Right. I appreciate the comment, though, Bob Brown. Appreciate everybody in there today. It's a bad day to be a Brian Pumper, but we appreciate you anyway. I appreciate all of our great viewers today. Chris AM, I want to thank you one more time, brother. Big super chat today, $100. Thank you so much, man. That's much appreciated. Thank you very much for that support. Johnny Mac, great show, brother. Your final thoughts, and then I'll let you run on this Tuesday, May 20th edition.
Can't wait till it's over. Hopefully it's over by Wednesday. It'll be over by Wednesday. Good, whether fans think it's good or bad, and they table it again or it gets passed, but it'll be over. And some Nick and Jalen Hurts later today, and hopefully some others. But I got to get running.
Yep, good stuff. Johnny Mac, thank you, brother. Talk to you tomorrow, brother, on Birds 365. Thank you.
All right, see you guys.
All right, there's Johnny Mac, John McMullen here on Birds 365. Great job from Johnny Mac today. Great job by Jayden Steele today, and a great job by all the people in the chat. A lot of great comments today on the show as well. Nick Sirianni extended the $20 million man. Joe Douglas returns, and the tush push is probably on its way out the door. Appreciate all of you guys. I'll take a couple comments from the chat before I get out of here. All right, Devin Shanahan, unfortunately for you, taking to the cleaners yesterday by me and now today by Johnny Mac. Brian Pumper. Wait a second. Is that Brian Pumper in the corner over there? Oh my God. Brian, how did you get over there in the corner? Oh, Johnny Mac sent you there. Hate to see it. Brian Pumper in the corner. You hate to see it, Brian Pumper. Appreciate everybody. Here, Carly says, I was on a walk. What did I miss? You missed the good stuff, as always. Johnny Mac was going off, closing out the show good. Jayden Steele was great today. All right, Philly Don checking in. What's up, Philly Don? Hope you're doing good. Great show. J. Mac and Zander. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Brian, is that the best you got? Are you kidding me, Brian? J. Mac sends you to a corner, man. Come on, man. Come on. Look at Fredo. Fredo, don't make me come after you, too. Rich, you've become a clown in the chat. Rich, you haven't had a good comment in 3 weeks. You haven't had a worthy comment in 3 weeks, Rich. Go back to the drawing board and figure it out here, my dude. I'm about to stop bringing you up on the screen. You're such a snooze fest. I mean, good night, Rich. Good night. Killer Tomatoes in here. Killer Tomatoes been on fire today. All right. I mean, you guys got to be kidding me. You guys got to be kidding me, including you, Fredo. I mean, this guy calls himself Fredo and he wants to chirp me in the chat. Are you kidding me? Look at me. Who the hell calls you Fredo? I just held Nick's extension. That's funny. That's funny, Kimbos. All right. Repeat my comment. Rich, your comments are dry and stale. They're trash. All right. Let's check in on Secunda. What up, Secunda? How you doing, brother? He says, I don't buy Starbucks or have an iPhone. I don't rely on billionaires as much as you or idolize them. It's weird. That's a classic Secunda comment here on a Tuesday morning. All right. Secunda, we appreciate it. We appreciate it. It's funny. I want no core. You guys saw A.J. Brown, right? Maybe you'll listen to A.J. Brown if you don't want to listen to me. Get off the corn. Get off the corn. All of you. Get off. Come on, man. Come on, man. Listen to AJ. Listen to AJ. The guy's got everything in life. All right? And he's showing you how it affects multimillionaires in the locker room. Quit it. Get off the corn. Next time you load up those stupid-ass sites, I want you to picture my face. Yeah, that should work, right? Get off the corn. Perfect. Exactly, 18. Me too. I mean, come on, man. Come on. All right, I got to go. We're off the rails today. We've been off the rails the whole show, though. I thought the conversation on Nick Sirianni was good, though. It is an interesting conversation with it isn't all perfect, man. Like, a year and a half ago, we were talking about Nick on the hot seat. He was meeting with Jeffrey Lurie. Lurie had to buy a yacht in order to feel better. How do you like that, Secunda? You don't like billionaire. How about Jeffrey Lurie going and buying a yacht, an emotional yacht purchase to make himself feel better about the collapse of his football team? How do you feel about that, Secunda? All right. How do you feel about that, Secunda? Xander needs to read a book on the sidelines. Yeah, maybe it'll work better than whatever you got going on, Fredo. Freaking Fredo. I mean, you got to be absolutely kidding me. You got to be absolutely kidding me. I know he's crying. Well, you guys give him a lot of reasons too. All right. Heel Xander. I'm not a heel. Maybe I am, but I'm not. I don't feel like I'm a heel. Not on this channel. I don't. When you got Cilio and John, it doesn't feel like I'm a heel. All right. It doesn't feel. I mean, I predicted the team 13-4. I tell you, I love Jalen Hurts. I mean, I give you everything you want to hear. All right. I don't think I'm a heel. Maybe at times I could be a heel, but all right. I mean, Rich, this guy, Rich, you need to legitimately take a week off because you're really struggling, Rich. All right. Maybe go and buy that 5-panel Kango. It'll make you feel better. All right. Maybe you'll get back to yourself. Michael Schreiner checks in. What's up, Michael? If the tush push doesn't get banned, the Eagles should run the play 3 times in a row and get a first down when we go to Green Bay. That'd be pretty funny. All right. And that'd be pretty funny. Xander, what time is the presser today? I think 12:45 Philly Dawn is what John mentioned, or 12:50-ish. So probably late noon. They might come out 10 minutes late. We'll see, but somewhere around there. Somewhere around there. All right. Somewhere around there. Big Z, are we doing Wildwood Days this week? I don't know. I might not be down, unfortunately. All right. I might not be down, Brian Fleming. I'm heading up probably to my brother's house. His birthday is Saturday. So, his birthday is, not the most important event. It's his new beautiful daughter, but we might all be at his place up in North Jersey. So we'll see. We'll see about that. I'll figure it all out. I'm not worried about it either way. All right. Fredo. Oh, look at Fredo. Fredo, did you bend the knee already? Are you kidding me? I call you out for the name Fredo one time and you bent the knee. Come on, man. Come on, man. Rich, it's 5-panel, you clown. Xander is a face, a.k.a. good guy. I could be a little bit of both, Flex. All right. Deep down, I'm born to be a heel. My whole life pre-JAKIB, I was a heel. All right. I was a heel in high school. I was a heel in college. I'm more of a heel, actually. All right. I kind of like being a heel. Brian Pumper says, Brian Pumper is the only heel in this chat. Brian Pumper's sitting over there in my corner. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm looking at him right now. Sitting in the corner, sulking. He's got his pinky in his mouth. Are you kidding me? JBL level. These bums in the chat wish they were like Brian Pumper. All right. Pumper, you got sent to the corner today by Johnny Mac. He told you, sit down, shut the F up, and enjoy the show. And you took it. You didn't even have an answer. All right. You didn't even have an answer. Freaking Pumper. All right. I appreciate you all. Have a good day, everybody. Hope you all have a great day. It's a beautiful May Tuesday today. All right. It's a beautiful May Tuesday. I appreciate you all being here. Rich, again, Rich, you're struggling. You're in quicksand and you're struggling to get out. It's all good, brother. Keep grinding. Keep hustling. Maybe go to the corner. Get back to the drawing board. You will bounce back eventually, but today is not that day. Okay? Today is not that day. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate Hornswoggle. Oh my gosh, Hornswoggle. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Flexing back in the day. I told you guys about Edgeley back in the day in high school where you run a big party at Fairmount Park. So back in the day, it was just 2014, 15. Back when in the internet was still a little bit less like it is now. The way to communicate with everybody was a Facebook page, and you made a fake Facebook page, and you always came up with a funny name. Like the people before us, the year before us did, who's that sports anchor guy? That I'm blanking on his name. Shoot, I'm blanking on his name. But anyway, one of the dudes in our grade made it Hornswoggle. So Hornswoggle was our Facebook page for that event. All right, which is pretty funny. You ate the final boss, Pump. Yeah, Flex, you might have to put this dude in the corner. He's already in the corner, but you might have to berate him in the corner. All right. This guy, Russ says, you're the ultimate baby face. You are the rock of sports pod. I don't know about that. I don't know about baby face. You know, sometimes I am, Russ, but not all the time. All right. Not all the time. My son Elijah asked y'all to hit the like button. It's his 9th birthday. Happy birthday to the great Elijah K. All right. I love it, Cody K. Congratulations, man. That's awesome. You have a 9-year-old son, and I'll be praying for him and thinking of him today. God bless Elijah. Love it, man. I appreciate all you guys. I will catch up with you guys later on. You know, yesterday when I closed Birds 365, I didn't expect to be doing a midday hit with Johnny Mac, but the contract extension came and we were live in the middle of the day. So maybe I'll talk to you later on today before the National Football Show. But if not, I'll be on with Big Sills later on today. I appreciate you all being here, and we'll see you next time on Birds 365. Happy birthday to Elijah. Thank you all.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.